The US stock market has been crashing. It could even get worse. We have major escalations coming in, breaking from Trump about his next plans for the Middle East. And we do have some major escalations with the oil price because there has been big manipulation. But you can see it is continuing to rise. And also we do have the next, big things to talk about right now. So the bond market is flashing red, plus an absolute ton more. So huge update to talk about today, guys. If you enjoy these videos, just do me a small favor, like the video. It's a signal you're watching and you do get value out of these. And let's get straight into this video. So I have to say, ominous signals are happening over the Middle East once again. So this is Dubai, massive lightning strikes happening. And is this an omen of what is about to hit the region in the Middle East soon? Because yesterday we saw a massive financial wipeout for US stocks. So the S&P 500 closes sharply lower as Iran war pace talks lose momentum, erasing $1 trillion in market capitalization today. The S&P 500 has now lost $3.5 trillion in terms of market cap since this war began. Oil has also been surging, and not only that, we are starting to experience real supply chain shortages around the world. Diesel is running out in Australia. We might have some massive fertilizer problems later on, and there could even potentially be a famine later on. That's how bad things are getting right now. And to give you some insights into the negotiations, we now have the big reveal of Trump's big present. So remember, a couple of videos ago, we spoke about Trump talking about a big present from a mysterious source. Now we have the answer. Let's listen into Trump, and then I'll give you the analysis behind the scenes.
They said to show you the fact that we're real and solid and we're there. We're going to let you have 8 boats of oil, 8 boats, 8 big boats of oil. This was 2 days ago. And they'll sail up tomorrow. That was 3 days ago. And I didn't think much about it. And then I watched the news, and they said, a very good anchor actually, happened to be Fox, but I watched it, and they said something's unusual happening. There are 8 boats that are going right up the middle of the Hormuz Strait. 8 big tankers are going loaded up with oil right through. And I said, well, I guess they were right, and they were real, and I think they were Pakistani flagged. And I said, well, I guess we're dealing with the right people. And actually, they then apologized for something they said, and they said, we're going to send 2 more boats. And it ended up being 10 boats. All right, I hope I haven't screwed up your negotiations, but I thought it was appropriate to say, because I did taunt you the other day by saying they're going to give us a present.
And it's a good story by Trump, but the only problem with this story is it actually has no basis in reality. So if you actually have a look right here, according to Bloomberg, it says tanker tracking data since March 23rd shows no signs of the 8 boats full of oil that President Trump said were gifted to the US. If this was some great present, you'd think both sides would want it, known for their own reasons. So considering Bloomberg, using actual data, and Trump just using words, and it sounds like a bit of a story, this might be another, repeated behavior of Trump just saying things that literally don't exist in reality. There is no bearing to reality. I don't know why he makes this up. What's going through his mind? Does he think people actually believe what he's saying? And at the same time, we've heard absolutely nothing out of the Iranian side about this, 8 boats of oil. And it's another story according to Trump, and this person has actually commented, Jack Manuel over on X. Some good analysis right here. This is the 4th documented instance of Trump claiming diplomatic progress with Iran that independent verification cannot confirm. The pattern is now consistent enough to describe as a doctrine rather than a series of mistakes. So, one of the problems, and this that we're seeing with this is also tied into financial manipulation. And he's also losing credibility in anyone who has a brain and who can independently analyze, news, or even just look at the bigger picture right here. Because this level of deceit by Trump, it's getting unparalleled, but because it's so bold and it's so brazen. And the analysis right here says, first, Iran is watching every unverifiable Trump claim and using each one as evidence that Washington manipulates markets and manufactures diplomatic progress for domestic consumption. Aragachi, who is the foreign minister right there, already accused Trump of fabricating negotiations to manipulate oil markets. Bloomberg just handed Tehran its most concrete piece of supporting evidence. Second, the insider trading investigation gains another data point. If the tanker gift announcement moved markets the way previous announcements did, and then the underlying event cannot be verified, the question of who profits from unverifiable presidential claims about this war becoming significantly more urgent. And that's it. Look, that is completely valid. Like, Trump is just saying stuff, and you do see knee-jerk reactions out of the financial markets with the movements in oil. And I have to say, like, this is, yeah, it's unparalleled. Sometimes I'm lost for words making these videos. Now, having said that, some guy who proves he has a lack of brain cells is Peter Hegseth. So you can see right here, let's play this clip, and I'll give you guys my take on it.
1,000 kilometers away. For years, they told the world that their missiles could only range 2 kilometers. Surprise.
And right there, Pete Hegseth getting 2 kilometers confused with 2,000 kilometers, and it's not surprising at all, because Pete Hegseth, he's not the sharpest tool in the shed. People know that, and look, the memes are writing themselves over on X, and 2 kilometers, that's like it's basically a nothing burger, and he doesn't even understand the metric system right there. Now, onto some real escalations that are happening. So, new intel, according to the Wall Street Journal, citing Department of War officials with knowledge of the matter, the Pentagon may be looking to send an additional 10,000 US forces to the Middle East. According to the Wall Street Journal, the force would include additional troops and also armored vehicles. So we are seeing more and more evidence. Like, just analyze the big picture of what's going on right here. So we're seeing Trump, talking about negotiations. There is absolutely no evidence of anything Trump is saying having any bearing on reality right now. So remember, could be a doctrine. It could be Trump's strategy to, deceive. So this deception strategy that is at play. What is not is getting deceived is the actual movement of troops. So right now we're seeing 10,000 US troops potentially on board. So that's going to bring up the troop numbers to quite a lot, right? So more details on this. These troops will be added to the 5,000 Marines and the thousands of paratroopers from the 82nd Airborne Division. The force would likely include infantry and armored vehicles. It is unclear where precisely forces will go in the Middle East, but they will likely be within striking distance of Iran and Kharg Island. Trump continues to state he will open the Strait of Hormuz with or without help from allies. And yesterday, oil prices are up to $94 per barrel, but they actually went in excess of 100. I think it's above 100. So you can see Brent right here in excess of 100, went up to 102 recently. And so you can see right here, this thing is escalating. And the other thing to consider is who is really in favor of this big Kharg Island. And this guy right here, if you have a look at this strategy, this is a big piece that has just come out yesterday. Yoav Gallant, how to finish the job in Iran. Iran must be compelled to accept conditions that end its nuclear threat and regional aggression. The way to do it is seize Kharg Island. And he does go on to say the burden of that risk would fall on US soldiers landing on the island. So is that a US general writing that? No, it is actually the Israeli former defense minister right there writing the strategy of what Trump might do next right there. So important to understand that. And we also have this announcement coming out of Trump, which people are rightfully alleging that this could be market manipulation, intervention for the bond market. So Trump came out right here yesterday, and he said, as per Iranian government request, please let this statement serve to represent that I am pausing the period of energy plant destruction by 10 days to Monday, April 6, 2026, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Talks are ongoing, and despite erroneous statements to the contrary by the fake news media and others that they are going very well, thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. And again, this is another statement that has absolutely no bearing to reality of what Iran is saying in the situation. So we actually have direct communication with Iran, and they're aware of exactly what Trump is doing. So you can see this came out recently, this tweet. Based on some data, Iran's enemies, with the support of one of the regional countries, are preparing to occupy one of the Iranian islands. All enemy movements are under the full surveillance of our armed forces. If they step out of line all the vital infrastructure of that regional country will, without restriction, become the target of relentless attacks. And there is absolutely no negotiations. There's, this guy right here, Aragachi, he is the foreign minister, like the official foreign minister of Iran. He has an X account. We're not seeing any of this getting corroborated by him. So they are very aware of, what Trump is doing. And look, this is my own independent point of view, but obviously Trump is putting out statements. It is for domestic consumption. It's for people in the US to kind of keep them in the dark, so they don't really, understand the bigger picture of what actually is at play right here. So it's to keep people in the dark. Honestly, he's using deception. And it just becomes more clear. Look, as I analyze these every day, the pattern is becoming more and more clear right here, what's actually going on. And then I'm just being honest with you guys. So I'm not here to, propagandize. I mean, if Trump was telling the truth, I'd tell you he's telling the truth. But I just don't see any evidence for whatever Trump is saying at the moment. He is just cooking some wicked stories at the moment right here. At the same time, Russia is poking holes at this whole situation. And Russian FM Lavrov says, you asked me what the difference is between the situation in Iran and the situation in Ukraine. The difference is that the Islamic Republic of Iran did not violate any of its international obligations, and that's actually true. So when they were doing the nuclear program, they were actually in full compliance with the IAEA until they got started to get bombed in 2025. And what else we are seeing is weird stuff coming out of the Pentagon. So cryptic videos, weird stuff, following last night's series of cryptic videos, one of which has since been deleted. And remember yesterday we had a video, that 4-second video flashing the American flag with the bell notification going off. They've deleted that. So again, weird things. Very strange people are running the White House account. And have a look at this. The White House is continuing to make strange posts. Thursday, with its social media pages on X and Instagram, posting several pixelated images over the last few hours of President Trump. How weird. These people are weird. Let's be honest. This is just weirdo stuff. We've also seen in the past the White House on the X account, they put out Nintendo clips of like people getting blown, like trucks and artillery getting blown up and stuff. Just the gamut, it's just weird propaganda coming out of the US. It's almost like it's strange. I don't know what force to say it's under control of, but it's just very strange at the moment. Now, more breaking intel. The Pentagon has suggested seizing the Iranian-controlled island of Abu Musa, located in the eastern Persian Gulf near the entrance to the Strait of Hormuz, roughly 40 miles from both Iran and the UAE, according to sources, Axios right here. You can actually see a bit more of a detailed breakdown of this potential plan. And what's interesting right here, so they're talking about, Karg Island, they're talking about Larak Island, they're talking about the strategically important Abu Musa Island. And look, if you watched yesterday's video, at the end of the video, we had a very good clip by an American, I think he was a colonel, and he tells you exactly what happens when you try to invade these islands. So he gave a really good insight. And basically, to summarize it up, they're hard to control, especially if you don't have missile supremacy and drone supremacy in the region, because you can just get missiled and you can get droned. And there's also been rumors, I watched another video the other day, of talks and chatter within the special operations forces of the US, and they're saying that the next potential moves, they haven't had a real proper strategy around this. So people are worried that they might be cannon fodder, and if Trump deploys units and they end up being cannon fodder, guys, what a total disaster this is going to be. And not only that, what else I found amusing from this report coming out of the Department of War. This last bit, so have a read of this last bit. Capturing or blocking ships from exporting Iranian oil in the eastern Strait of Hormuz. So they themselves will then block the Strait of Hormuz. That's also a strategy. So Trump is literally deploying a strategy to potentially block the Strait of Hormuz himself. So it's just, we live in the insane asylum at the moment. That's what's going on. We do have data on what the Iranians are going to do, and they are highlighting that they have 1 million troops mobilized, ready to go. And the other thing about this thing, this whole conflict, is the Iranians are highly motivated. So, the whole destruction of their leader, the spiritual leader at the beginning of the war, that actually mobilized them all. They're all on the same boat right now, and they're ready to fight. So 1 million strong troops ready to go. And at the same time, they are highlighting what they potentially might strike in the region. So all the energy facilities right here. And again, I hate to say this, but it could potentially be looking at a very, very bad situation. And the US at the same time, this is also, factoring into the island strategy, is from the outset of this war, US soldiers have fled military bases in the GCC to hide in hotels and offices. They use GCC citizens as human shields. Hotels in the US deny booking to officers who may endanger customers. GCC hotels should do the same. That's coming out of the foreign minister of Iran. But also, this shows you the fact that, the US has bases in the Gulf at the moment that are completely uninhabitable. So they can't even stay in the bases because they've been destroyed. It's not safe to stay in them. So what are they going to do on an island? There's literally no cover on an island. Like, again, the whole strategy is kind of crazy. So we're going to have to just see how this all plays out. This is Karg Island. I mean, what do you do once you get there? Just imagine you're on this island. You're a US soldier. And you land here, and these are actual photos from the island. What next? What is the plan you do right here? And you'd be pretty worried. Like, you'd honestly be pretty worried, because you might be standing there, and the next thing you'd hear is the humming of drones and the humming of missiles coming your way. And so again, the whole thing is just under the fog of conflict, and we'll see how it all plays out. And the other thing to just have on the radar as well is, if you actually think holistically about the US strategy in the last 25, 30 years, it's all backfired. So right now, if you listen to, politicians like Ron Paul was, I still think he's a great US politician. He made a lot of sense. He was one of the first guys I started listening to in the US back in the day, back in 2007, 2008. And what kind of, made me more aware of US politics is when they started to censor Ron Paul from debates. And remember, let me know if anyone remembers that, but I was watching news debates, and he was not even getting invited to debates in the US, and which I thought was crazy, because I was like, well, this is a democracy, right? He should have a viewpoint. And they were literally censoring him from polls. But one thing I just want to say from this tweet, so you can see right here, the Iranian FM talking about, Iraqi Shia basically rising up. And they're getting involved in the conflict right now. You might have Yemen joining in. And this whole strategy in the US has now backfired. So they have now, and these are the numbers run from artificial intelligence Grok right here. So where is it? These numbers right here. You have some huge numbers. So Iraq war, you had nearly 4,000 plus dead, 30,000 wounded. It cost $2.89 trillion. You had the Afghanistan war, which cost, roughly 2,500 dead. 20,000 wounded US troops, and then that cost $2.3 trillion. And guess what the return on investment? I mean, again, this is just from a economic or even strategic point of view, and a human point of view as well. They've now lost all this. This is all gone. So Afghanistan, there's no US bases. Remember, they had to flee. The US had to flee Afghanistan, and now it's fled Iraq. There is basically nothing in Iraq anymore. And now they're trying to battle Iran when they have literally no infrastructure around this area to do so. And the aircraft carriers have also left the region. I mean, what are we even analyzing anymore? This is just I don't even know what to make of this. It's that mind blowing sometimes. And at the back end, what Trump doesn't seem to care about, even Trump's allies, is the impact on the global world right now. This is happening. So people out of diesel, potentially out of food. This is a really ticking time bomb situation. So this could get very bad. I mean, look, the US oil price, as Trump potentially goes to this final ground invasion occupation, just remember as well, there is a chance, there's a fighting chance that Iran might actually defeat the US in this conflict if they go for a ground invasion. So just remember, anything is up for grabs right here. It's just going to be insane to see it all play out. But that's literally kind of what's happening. And, a bit of an update on the financial markets. The financial markets are puking. They don't like this at all. As have we kind of been analyzing on the channel. I mean, I'm fundamentally a fan of gold and silver, but we have seen these impacts where, the silver and the gold market, as the fear really ramps up and people start to think about, do I have fuel in my car and do I have food in my cupboard? We've seen gold and silver, potentially as manipulation, but you've seen sell-offs as well, weakness in the price right there. And also you've seen the S&P 500 just get hammered. And, the big picture up for this, and people don't really understand this, is, the S&P 500, I've seen the people theorize that, the stock market just grows infinitely 5 to 8% per year forever. It's not true. It's not true, especially if you fundamentally kind of lose your empire kind of thing. And that's kind of the big picture, what's up for grabs right here. So the US, this could be, this time right now where the US is starting to teeter, right? It's starting to teeter, and it could be the decline of the US empire, and correspondingly you could see, the eventual decline of the S&P 500 and other things. And remember, even after this conflict is over in Iran, these Western countries, they're not beacons of growth. There is a lot of instability in Western countries. There's a lot of people who think, that the government is not doing a good job and actively actually working against populations of Western countries. And I think that's even going to get even more, volatile. The situation will get more volatile. So remember, it's all happening. So that's a monster update for today. Again, if you guys got value out of it, like the video. I do try and put effort into these videos, even though we get very little views. It's all good. I do enjoy analyzing this, and we'll keep him on the radar because it is interesting, how this is all playing out. It is crazy. But yeah, that's today's update. Appreciate you watching this. I'll see you in the next one.